Hi, my name is Molly. I'm 22 years old. I'm currently in college. Throughout my years in school, I loved most of it. Sure, I did have some bad times from time to time, like a bad day or something, but there's only one day that I was really terrified. It happened when I was 16 years old at the high school, and it really terrified me for quite some while. I had nightmares for quite some time. And it happened on a Friday. I will give you exactly some more details since this has been like 6 years ago, but I still remembered it very vividly as if it's like what happened yesterday. And I will give you exactly what happened this particular day. It all happened when I was in my biology class. I asked my teacher, Mr. Summers, if I could use the restroom, since I really badly need to have to use it. And of course, my teacher gave me permission to go. And luckily, though, that the restroom wasn't even that far from the classroom, maybe only a few minutes of walk. After I finished in the restroom, I heard this sound on the speakers. We are going to lockdown. Repeat, we are going to lockdown. This is not a drill. Seek shelter as fast as you can. This is not a drill. This is a lockdown. There was a repeated message and it was the principal. I was like, a lockdown and not a drill? I was scared. But as I know, each classrooms are getting immediately locked and the lights are turned off. And I was in the restroom and the door to the restroom was not even had a lock on it. I was terrified. I didn't even know what to do. So I I listened. There were no sound. And as I just was considering to stay put in the restroom and turn off the light and pretend that's if no one was in there. But I didn't even want to stay there because who knows what was the actual cause of the lockdown. I luckily have my cell phone with me, so I texted my friend who was in the same class as me, and she told me that apparently from what the teacher told him, some strange man had just walked in and he was screaming and like a maniac, and he was wielding a knife. And I was like terrified now, knowing that this strange maniac guy or man was walking around with a knife, not knowing if I even should do anything. My friend asked me where I were. I told her I was in the restroom. She told me to leave the restroom and to find somewhere else to be, maybe a locked door or something. And I was like, even if I tried to go to closest, the next classroom, they probably wouldn't even let me in. So I didn't know what to do. So I quietly put my phone back in my pocket and turn on down the sound or at least the volume on it. And I opened the door quietly, looked out on both directions, and listened. I couldn't even hear it at first, but I could hear some in distance screaming, yelling, or screaming some unintelligible sounds. I don't know what this man was even saying because I don't think he was even saying any particular words at all. I think maybe he just makes those screaming sounds like a complete wild beast or something. And I was like, I had to find somewhere else to be look in a shelter. And as I left these restrooms, I was now standing completely exposed in this empty hallway. Even though I heard that the man was in a quite distant away from me, but I didn't know exactly how long this will give me some time to think. Because who knows, maybe this man would suddenly appear around the corner and he will immediately see me and run up to me and know what who will happen. So I decided I had to find somewhere else to go. And I mean, there were no classrooms next to you in the hallway, and I could always have run up to my classroom, into biology classroom, but he probably would heard me running, and he probably would run after me. So I had to find as any the best, closest, safe place that I could even think of. And as I was walking around the next, I left the hallway and crossed to another one. And the first place that I could see that was probably the best and probably only option I had as a hiding spot, the janitor's closet. And I knew that sometimes the janitor locks the door, and if the door was locked, I had to find some other place to hide, and I didn't know where. So just I only took a by chance. I went to the door quietly, and as I heard the man getting closer and closer in the hallway behind me, I was now in a very much rush. So I hoped the door was be open. So, and for goodness, it was unlocked. So I opened the door as fast as I could, but as quietly as possible, and went in. And luckily, though, the door was actually quietly, and I managed to close it. And in the room, there was this big cart, or like a wagon that the janitor usually put in there when he emptied the trash or something in it. And I crawled behind it, and I was quiet, and I was holding my breath as I could hearing this man screaming and slamming his hands against the lockers as he was walking, and I couldn't hear screaming. The only few words that I can actually hear is that I'm gonna kill everyone in here. He was screaming as a lunatic. I didn't know why I felt so terrified, and I didn't even know what to do. As he was, I felt that he was just outside the door, and he's like banging and banging and banging. I'm gonna kill everyone, he screamed loudly, and he banged on the wall as he left the hallway. I didn't know what to do, and after a few minutes, the sound of him was more and more distant. But I wanted to get out of there because if he would come back and find that I was in there, the door was even locked. And I couldn't even lock from the inside. It could only be locked from the outside. So it's impossible for me to do. So I texted my friend back in the biology class telling her what I were, and I was thinking, considering to go back to the classroom. But my friend told me it was probably best to stay behind, but my choice to go back to classroom probably was the one that's for the best option, because the classroom door could be locked from the inside and the outside. And I probably would not even stand a chance if this man attacked me, because I don't even know if this man was drunk or even high of some sort of substance. And I didn't want to take my risk. I didn't want to take a chance of being either that. So quietly I stood up, walked up to the door, listened. No sound. It was like he was gone. So I opened the door quietly and just only a small crack and listened. Still no words, no sounds, no banging or anything. Maybe he had walked far away from my location. So I opened the door quietly and I locked the door, at least closed the door behind me. But as I was walking, as about to turn around, I heard the sound of the man coming back. It terrified me. I didn't have enough time to just go back inside the door, in the closet to hide. So I took my probably the most stupidest, but also the only thing that could save me. I didn't want to walk silently because I could hear the man coming faster and faster. So I wanted to do, and luckily though, since the biology class wasn't even that far from where I were, so I took the courage that I have and ran. And I mean, I literally ran as fast as I could. And my footstep echoed in there from the empty hallways. And the man who heard it, he starts screaming, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna kill you, he screamed loudly as a maniac. And I start hearing him banging on the locker doors and start screaming, laughing like a maniac or lunatic. And he ran after me. And I mean, he was start running as fast as I could. I first believed that he's gonna capture me. And when I turned around, I was just only a few feet away from my biology door class, and I could actually hear the man, and I somehow could see his shadow on the floor. I ran up to the door, banging. I was like, Mrs. Summers, let me in, let me in. She saw me outside and quickly opened the door and dragged me in and closed the door behind her fast and locked it. I could see my classmates were so terrified. Some of them was actually crying. And as I just had just sat down next to some of my friends by near the wall, we actually heard the man just have walked up to ran up to the door and start smashing himself against it like, I'm gonna kill everyone in there and it's gonna be fun. He laughed like a maniac. He slammed against himself against the door repeatedly over and over and over. But suddenly he stopped and then he ran off. I I was dumbfounded. He could easily have been kicked down the door or slammed down, and suddenly he just took off. The reason that later on I find out that the police had just arrived to the school and they find out where the man was located from another teacher who had reported back to the principal. And they magically found him in another closet, hiding, where he was prepared to attack anyone who opened the door. But the police used tasers on this guy, and it made him drop down. But I was so terrified. We didn't even know if this guy had any other people with him, if he was completely alone or if there was multiple people. But as we were being told by the principal over by the speakers to remain in our classrooms or any other places that we were until the police made a full lookout in the entire school building. Luckily, though, the school wasn't even that big. There were probably like 150 students at most. After they made a complete thorough search throughout the school building from top to bottom, they didn't find any other people hiding. And after maybe less than an hour or so, the lockdown was moved. We were allowed to go out, and the rest of the school was actually cancelled. And as I walked out, I saw my mom and dad outside with among other parents who had been informed about this lockdown. Seeing my mom's face, terrified, scared, and crying, she hugged me and hugged me and hugged me. And I didn't blame her. I felt the same thing. So I told Vicky after she came out as herself that I we should postpone our time this weekend, and she completely understood. And that same day, like the same day, we find out this guy was actually high on meth, and he was so high that he thought people was after him. That he he thought that some people, bad people, were hiding into school and that they were planning on taking away from some place. That was the reason why he attacked the school. He went to school, my high school, and it's just it's like terrifying me. Even after all these events, like weeks after, I still had nightmares that the guy would have had managed to get inside the classroom and had managed to kill everyone there and a few other people before he was caught. I was having so bad nightmares that I was like, I didn't even know if I would even be able to sleep. But as time went on, I slowly just started forgetting all about this behind me. But having remembers hearing other when I when me and Vicky once when I first I start had just recently when we talked about our high school adventures and our memories, our favorite moments, when suddenly this lockdown story came up, it would be brought all the memories. So I decided I wanted to make this story to tell others about my scary lockdown event. I mean, I know that a lot of other people have their terrifying lockdown scariest experience, and I want to tell my own. And it's I was really, at, at least feeling happy this was years ago. But also happy that this guy was end up in jail for at least a number of years for for the be using meth and even has on meth on him. But also to have this experience being out there so other people could have been share their own experience after hearing other people share their experience, but also to be able to tell my own. And so that people can get to learn to understand what to do if it happens. Things like what you shouldn't do, and other things that really can have been, could have been eventually saved a life. But please, if you really are going in a lockdown, even if it's a drill, always make sure you find somewhere you can actually hide, and please make sure that the door can be locked from the inside and be quiet. If I didn't even have left the restroom, I don't know if the man would, if he actually heard me in there, I would have not been here today telling you all about my experience. For that, I am really happy to be at least be around being able to tell my story. So, to this man all those years ago, please, I'm really happy that we never been able to meet ever again. But let's not do that.